What's going on, everybody? Kennybomb is in the building, and we just got a very rare interview from Yuke. And they spoke about AEW Fight Forever, working with Kenny Omega, the WWE 2K series, and they dropped a few clues on what we can expect from them in the future. So we got to talk about it. But first, do me a huge favor and drop a like on this video. But don't forget to smash that subscribe button, especially if you don't want to miss any updates on any of your favorite wrestling games. Oh yeah, before we get into it, my audio was kind of cooked in this video. I don't know what happened, but I just ordered a new soundboard, so it'll be better in the next one. Forgive me. Let's get to it.
Run, boy, they coming on.
All right, so I haven't read through this whole article yet, but what I have read is pretty intriguing. And Yuke doesn't talk to us often, so when they do speak, we should listen because that's gotta mean something's coming, right? Let's take a look at the article and see if we can figure that out. So I think the start here is interesting as well. When asked to think of modern wrestling games, many players instantly think of Yuke. I don't know if that's the case. I think if you think about modern wrestling games, these days people will think about 2K because it's been over 10 years at this point that they've had this wrestling license. So a lot of people probably don't even remember Yuke made the SmackDown vs. Raw game and even games before that. And I know Yuke worked on the 2K games as well, but with the 2K logos being plastered all over the place, that's the name people will remember. But let's go ahead and take a look at the first question they asked Yuke. It's been more than a year since AEW Fight Forever was released. So far, how would you say it's gone in terms of hitting the levels of success you'd expected? Yuke responds, first of all, I should preface this by saying as a developer and not the publisher, there's only so much I can say. I can't really comment on sales figures and I can't really comment on upcoming content because again, that's the job of the publisher. Now, they really got to be careful with their words because saying you can't comment on upcoming content makes it sound like there is more content coming to AEW Fight Forever. And as we know by now, the game is finito. But this is pretty much them saying, listen, we made the game. We did our job. As far as sales and stuff, that's what we don't care about. But then they continue. I can speak to how we feel about the game. And having developed it and having had it released a year ago, we're really proud of it. It's really a solid work and it was fun to make. And you know what? I absolutely agree with them. I think AEW Fight Forever was definitely a solid work. People kind of put it in the mud and make it sound like it's the worst wrestling game of all time when it absolutely wasn't. I still stand on the fact that AEW Fight Forever is a 7 out of 10, and I think that's really good when it comes to AEW having their first wrestling game. If they came out with another one, they can build on that and make it even better. But for AEW Fight Forever being their first outing, I think that game actually turned out really well. With that being said, when they continued on with this next part, I got kind of worried because I'm out here in the trenches and I see what's going on. They continued. We're getting a lot of great feedback from fans. They're letting us know how they feel about the game. A lot of positive feedback, which we love. Now, we all see the talk about AEW Fight Forever, and we know it's not all positive feedback, but thankfully, they did give us both sides and a lot of constructive feedback, which we also love. Now, I need y'all to pay close attention to this next part. They say they love that constructive criticism because it's going to let them know what areas they need to focus on in the future. So there you have it. We don't know if Yuke will be working on the next AEW game, but this means they do have plans to work on another wrestling game. And while I hope it would be an AEW game, I honestly do not care if it's not, because we just need more wrestling games breathing on this market. I don't care if they pick up the Def Jam IP and make a Def Jam fight for Las Vegas. In fact, I kind of hope they do that, but make it Miami instead. Have BBLs running all over the place. But the next part of this article I want to point out actually puts the spotlight on Kenny Omega's involvement in this project. Speaking of Kenny Omega, when he helped to announce the game in the first place, he stated that at the time he wanted it to be similar to something like WWF No Mercy. I wonder if the team had felt like this was a big goal to reach, because when you're talking about stuff like that, you're talking about one of the greatest wrestling games ever made. Now, you know what? I'm ready to say this on camera. No Mercy is definitely one of the greatest wrestling games ever made, but I think people really like Here Comes the Pain a lot more. I've done a lot of polls and research on different channels, and everybody says Here Comes the Pain is the great. So we could put this whole theory down that No Mercy is the best of all time because it's a great one, but it's not the best. Did the team ever think that was a huge challenge to meet or an interesting goal to aim for? Because I wonder whether it's a good thing or a bad thing to aim for something that high. Now, this question here was actually a bit of an insult because you're asking somebody from the team that made Here Comes the Pain if they can live up to the task of making a game like No Mercy. Now, again, don't get me wrong. No Mercy was a great game. I love the Aki engine, or AKI, whatever you want to call it. But Here Comes the Pain was just a different monster. So I don't understand why you're asking this person this question. I think he might not know who he's talking to. But the response here was interesting regardless. Our Yuke's representative says, so the one thing I can say is that we have great respect for WWF No Mercy. It's an amazing game. It's a classic. I definitely agree. Knowing that Kenny's favorite game was not a Yuke's developed wrestling game, as someone who's been making them for 20 plus years, I'll be honest, it was kind of a bummer. But it did also help us set a high goal and really aim to do something special. And you know, just being able to be compared to something on that level and then to aim for something like that was a great honor for us and a great challenge. Now, if you ask me, I think this may be where they went wrong with AEW Fight Forever. And I know they had some people from the team who made No Mercy join them, but if they focused on trying to make the game like Here Comes the Pain, a game they made, then I think they would have had a much better outcome. They had too many chefs who mastered different dishes working in the same pot. They had the Aki boys and girls who mastered that No Mercy style working on it. You had the Yuke's team who mastered Here Comes the Pain and SmackDown vs. Raw, some of the 2K games working on it. And you had Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks who never made a video game in their life working on it as well. They all put their recipes together and it just blew up in everybody's faces. If Yuke's does get the opportunity to make another AEW game, I think the wrestlers need to stay out of it, and I think Yuke's just needs to go in there and do their thing because they made the best WWE games of all time. Speaking of WWE games, the last thing I'm going to talk about from this article is Yuke's actually talking about them. Now, before this question, they were talking about the downfall of the 2K series with WWE 2K20 and how they bounced back. Yuke's was asked, are you happy that even though it's a rival series, it's now reviewing well and back on form again? Does that encourage you to raise your game? The response was, you know, I haven't really thought about it through that lens, but I can put it to you this way. The more wrestling games out there and the more teams working on wrestling games, the better it ultimately is for the wrestling game community. You get more and more fans and people get more and more excited about it. So I think obviously overall, it's a very good thing to have lots of good wrestling games out there. And I think for us as well, we've worked on WWE games, we've worked on AEW games, we'll continue to work on all sorts of wrestling content in the future as well. So I think having a big player base of wrestling fans is going to benefit us and it's going to benefit the community more broadly. And you know, having played the newest release and seen some of the cool new features and things like that, I think in terms of rivalry, it's going to be a challenge to overcome those guys there. They're getting really good. You know what? 2K, they're doing their thing with the WWE franchise, but there's something missing. So I think if you want to rival them, just don't do exactly what they're doing. If they made an arcade wrestling game just like AEW Fight Forever and people were actually pleased with the features and the matches and everything they put in it, you can still win by playing your own game. And I hope that's what we see from AEW Fight Forever in the future. You don't have to look at 2K and what they're doing and try to copy that. Just do what you did with AEW Fight Forever and make it better. Besides, if you want to compete with 2K, the best thing to do is just let Yuke's do what they're doing and throw the license at EA as well and let them make the sim game. What do y'all think about it? Let me know in the comment section, but don't forget to drop a like on this video and smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Bomb Squad, let's get to that.